Hello, my friends. This is Sandy, and we're going to go through my Elegant Pine Snowflakes 17 card kit. So if you got my 17 card kit, you're just going to follow along to this video. If you'd like this kit, let me know. I have 4 left. Um, all you'll need to complete this kit is adhesive, some dimensionals, sanding tools, scissors, maybe a white gel pen, and perhaps a couple of inks to add texture to the die cuts and embossed cardstock. So the products that I featured were the Elegant Pine Snowflakes, the Silent Snowfall Specialty DSP, that's the snowflake embossed paper, really pretty. The Greetings for You Ephemera pack, which is all the sentiments. Light and Wonder dies, which, guys, is on the last chance discounted list. So if you like these, get them now. All of these beautiful designs were done with this die set. The Perennial Postage dies, which is the postage stamps. And then I use the embossed brick 3D embossing folder to do all that brick embossing. Okay, so if you got my kit, you got a whole bunch of ribbon that we'll be using throughout, and then 17 envelopes, 17 cards. I folded all my cards ahead of time and set them aside. They're all standard folds. And then you've got some pieces on top that are going to go to card number 1, and or throughout the cards, you might say, hey, I want to add a little extra something here. So we're going to use them for card 1, and then you're going to have extras to use throughout. Okay, so we're just going to dive right into card number 1, which is this one up here, and I'm going to set all of these off to the side for now. Hopefully I can get them out of order for myself. So I'm not going to do the embossing. You guys have also, or not the embossing, I'm sorry, the inking. You've all seen the ink, rub the thing over, the ink pad over top. So I'm going to leave this one just white snowflakes, just to save myself some time. It's the end of the year. Can you believe 2025 is like over? Crazy to me. Okay, so you decide which side you want, up or down, and then just rub your ink over top of it if you want those snowflakes to kind of pop. Here they are again up close, snowflakes. Okay, so I'm going to start by taking my um, adhesive, and I'm just going to put that plastic piece that's in your kit right on the back side. That's going to create our window. Then in the middle of this piece right here, I'm going to, all of the sentiments are adhesive backed. So just pull the backing off of those. And I want my sentiment to go right in the center. We are creating a shaker window. You know me, right off the bat, we're going to create a shaker window. So I'm going to put foam all the way around there. And then we're going to add some little gems. So figure out what gems you want to use to put in the middle of that. So I've got my foam around there, and I already pulled the backing off the foam. I have to be very careful how I place these guys because you don't want any gaps. You want to keep that seal nice and tight with the foam so that the shaker doesn't leak. So I added some of the white snowflakes that I just love Stampin' Up's bling. The bling is amazing, guys. All right, so some of the white snowflakes, I don't want to do too much, and some of the new gold shaker stars, and I love that those have the insides cut out on some of them. All right, so I'm going to do my best to line that up so that it hits right in the center of that die cut. And now there's our shaker. Easy peasy. And then I'm just going to add some extra foam along the edges so that the whole card is lifted before I mount that. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of ribbon. Where's my ribbon? I'll put the ribbon on. Now we can slide our postage stamp underneath it because our foam tape is going to help hold that ribbon in place. So we're going to just take that and I'm going to put a little bit of regular tape along the back side where I want that to go and make sure my Merry Christmas is falling the right way here. And that's going about 1.5 inches up from the bottom. And then again, just take your foam and add some foam along the edges there. I've got my foam tape on there and now I'm just lining that up on the front of the card. Okay, so there's where we are so far. And now we're just going to create our postage stamps. So here's where this first one, I know the first one I'm starting right off being kind of creative. So these 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3, line up together. I'm going to use a sanding block and just reveal some of the white core on each level. And then take my blue square and you're starting with the bottom layer. So we're going to do, bring that right up close so you can see what I'm doing. So we've got our blue square. Now I'm doing this piece that's at the top, leaving enough sky revealed. It makes me happy. And I'm just having it hang off the edge and I'll trim it off after. And now I'm just lining up my next one and play around with it. Maybe I'll make a peak higher or lower. Totally up to you how you want to do all that. And then my last piece here, I'm going to have this one come up and overlap just a little bit up here. Give it some extra dimension. And then we're going to trim off the bottom. So now we've got this fun layered piece of landscape that we're going to put inside of our postage stamp and attach that to the card. Ho, ho, ho. Isn't that amazing? So fun. So now you've got another square and you've got some pieces. Take a look at your pieces and decide what you want to use. I think I'm going to go with this one to start. So I'm going to put this one on, but then I'm going to cut right down here and flip it over and use the other side of this right here. Fun little layering, right? And this time I'm going to cut off first before I add some trees. I'm going to take them from this side. And I'm not going to show a whole bunch of tree. I'm just going to have the tops showing and the rest of it's going to hang off. So I'll trim off this extra. And now we've got another fun landscape. I could have sanded that one as well if I wanted to. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do a little bit of sanding after the fact to show you how easy it is to just, then the trees get a little sanded too, but I already taped it so it's sticking. Right, so we still got some of that white showing if you wanted it to. And then again, right inside our postage stamp. And that gets right down in here. So the ribbon lines up, kind of overlapping that card. Ta-da, isn't that fun? Love, love, love it. All those pieces we didn't use, just set aside, because again, you might decide you want to add a little something in later. All right, so sand as much or as little as you want. I sanded the green piece, and each one of the layers except the white, the blue. Okay, so all those layers. But again, you do as much or as little as you want to do of that. I'm actually going to not do any sanding on this one and see how we like it. You decide if you want to go light or dark. I'm going to go on the light side with this one. And then we've got this white layer that goes next. And that's done with that same snowflake paper that we played with on that first card. All right, so we know that we're done with those. We've got our blue. We'll do our sentiment last. We want our trees. We're going to start with the bottom layer. So I always start with the bottom layer. And our trees are going to go wherever we want our trees to fall. And then we're going to add, you pick which layer. I'm going to go with this one next. And I want it to kind of come up on those trees a little bit. Next, I'm going to do this layer that has the markings on it. And the nice thing about these two layers is that they line right up so that if you line them up perfectly, they kind of space together along the ridge. But you don't have to, you can offset them too, and that's fun. All right, next I'm doing my little bulbous hill here, and I want that to still allow some of that middle layer of green or gray to show. And next we're going to add our trees, and I need to just pop a couple of these little guys out of here. And one edge of mine is ripped. That's okay because we're only using the middle part of this. And you want to make sure that some of that, ooh, I need to trim this a little bit. All right, I'm pulling this back off, and I'm actually going to attach this to this first. And see how some of the gray is showing underneath? I'm just going to use my scissors and trim off a little bit of this gray underneath so that it doesn't show. Just an ouncer. Okay, so now when we attach these two pieces, Presto Change Alakazam, you don't see any of that gray underneath from the mountains. And when we trim off all the hang off from the edges, which some of it's pretty thick with all those different layers, we've got this gorgeous landscape. My trees are a little cockeyed. I'm running with it though. All right. Okay, so this is going in a frame. In that gray, dark gray frame, I'm going to add my Merry and Bright. Now, if you didn't want to do these as more seasonal, kind of Christmassy cards or New Year's cards, you could add different sentiments to them, which is nice. I added 2 knots to the ribbon on this one. I'm just going to do one for now. You do you, whatever makes you happy. So a little bit of tape on the back side to hold the ribbon in place. Then, if you want, you can use foam tape and just pop that up, or you can tape it right down flat. And personally, I just like to pop everything. So I did. All right, there we go. There's our second card. And let me pull this up close so you can see. One sanded, one not sanded, still beautiful. Gives it a little different look, right? Super cool. All right, let's do our third card. All right, so to ink, to sand, that is a question only you can answer. I inked the bottom layer, that embossed piece, and I sanded everything on my original artwork. On this one, I'm going to ink and sand nothing. and I'll show you what the difference is, and you decide for yourself what's best for you. See, isn't that great how these line up? I just think that's so awesome. All right, now before I place my trees, I just want to figure out where my bottom really falls right now. All right, I am going to sand these trees. I just like the way they pop when they've got that sanded look to them. I know, I lied. I said I wasn't going to sand anything, and here I am sanding. Oh, I'm having such a time with this adhesive. Okay. I have a couple of spots I didn't pop out, but a lot of it's going to get covered, so that's okay. You decide how tall you want these particular trees to go. Got kind of tone on tone going there. And then we've got this cluster of really dark trees that can, again, go as high as you decide you want them to go. And then we're just going to trim everything right down that original blue piece. And then add frame, don't, the ribbon, or do or don't, you decide. You know, I'm going to not add ribbon this time and see how I like it. I might end up adding it, you guys. Okay. 'Tis the season. Yeah, it needs the ribbon. It helps offset it. Personal preference for me. Ribbon's going on. And I just like the single knot. I think it's, simple, easy. You still get that look of the ribbon, but not with, a bunch of extra work for yourself. Just a quick loop. And then again, you decide if you want to foam it or not. Pop it up. I'm going to. Sanded and not sanded. You pick your design. All right, here's our next card that we're going to do. You decide if you're going to sand that base. I'm going with not sanded and just attaching my paper. If you're going to sand, be sure you sand before you add that. Okay, then here's our base. We need our mountain first in the background, and it does not show on either side. So I'm actually going to take my scissors and just trim it so that the mountain keeps on going down on both sides. And you won't see any of that. It's just, you're just going to see that middle section. Then we need our mountain white caps. And you decide how you want those to fall, but that will go all the way across. I'm going to angle mine a little bit. We're cutting off the edges, so it really doesn't matter. Next, we're going to add our trees, and they're going to hang off both sides. You want the middle to be kind of in the middle. So just decide how tall you want your trees to be. I'm going to bring mine up just a little bit. And now we're going to add our water along the front. And you want that water to come up so that it hits this tree right at its base. Ooh, but make sure it's, ooh. I have to go a little bit higher than that. I'm actually going to take this and wrap it around the back side because of my spacing. Yeah, that works. So you just want to make sure along the bottom that it's covering up both sides of the blue. None of that light blue on either side. And then we can take and trim down all the edges. So Susan Potter, if you are watching, I apologize that your kit that we did before Christmas was not organized the same way. You are the reason. I saw how hard it was for you to try to figure out which pieces went with which cards. So what she had to do was she had a big pile like this of all of the pieces for all of the cards and had to figure out which one went with which. And I have instructions separate that kind of told you which pieces went with which. I'll show you those in a minute. Um, but she was really struggling. So I decided for you guys, everyone else's kits would get assembled with all the pieces inside theirs except the first one. Okay, so I'm running my season's greetings on here. And then this is going on the postage. And then are you going to pop your postage or are you going to leave it flat? I'll leave this one flat. All right, so there's the difference between the sanded and unsanded. Grab the pieces for your next card and decide, are you going to ink that base? Let me bring it up close so you can see. To ink or not to ink? So before I pull that out, let me just show you my cheater sheet. So we haven't gotten to card 15 yet, but it's base, then you add this, then you add this, then you add this, then you add this. We already did card 1. There's card 2 where we did those pieces. Just did that one. And now oh no, we just did this one. Now we're working on this one right here. So we can use the cheater sheet if you want, but I think we've done enough now. You guys probably understand the process. You always start with the bottom layer and work yourself forward. Okay. I'm just going to set these aside for a second. Add my white mountain first. And then this layer goes on that. And remember, it kind of lines up. Then we're going to take this mountain and same thing, kind of just trim off the edges so it just peaks in the middle there. And I'm going to do a little sanding on that layer. So it stands out a little more. All right, that's going to go kind of right in the middle there. And then we've got this piece where I die cut the top for the trees and the bottom for the water. So actually, before we even attach this to our sky, let's figure out where we want our trees to go, and we have to cut some of those mountain pieces down. Do it right in here. Make sure I like the way it still lines up, gorgeous. And then just a little bit of trimming of that mountain. And then same thing over here. So now when we add this whole piece to here, we have the sky on the top and the water on the bottom that are the same piece of paper. Hee hee, tricked you. So I'm just going through and trimming the edges down for that. If you find any little trees like this that you like, you might want to save them to use on other cards. I like tucking little extra trees. Like I'm going to take this tree right here and I'm going to tuck it kind of right back in here. Cool, right? And then that extra layer back there pops a little bit. Let's add these trees. Might as well add all my trees. Got them. Might as well use them. I'm so glad that did not hit my foot. Let me throw this last one in here too. It's one little lonesome tree. Put him right in there with his buddies. Hey, guys. All right. Let's add this to our postage stamp. And ribbon or no ribbon, you make your call. Let me add a little extra tape to this mountain here. I think I'm going to add ribbon. Nice little extra layer. Yeah, that's fun. Okay, now foam or no foam. I'll just do it flat this time. And again, did you decide to sand or not to sand? And I'm not going to put Merry Christmas on this one because I am going to use this for kind of more of a New Year's hello card. All right, so there we go. A little more naked versus bejeweled. Here's our next one. There's the process card for it, if you so choose to use. I did ink that base with some blue and I sanded the brown pieces. I'm going to start by tearing off each side of that pattern paper. And I'm going to put that down at just a little bit of an angle. I want to make sure that 1, 2, 3, 4 corners are all off the edges. And then just trim. All right, then I'm going to add my postage stamp. I sanded the edges and did white gel pen around the edges of it. That's why it pops a little more on there. Okay, now let's do our build here. So we've got our trees that go down first. And what you can do with these trees is I'm going to just cut right down the middle here. And I want some trees to be showing on this side. Oop, down a little bit. And I want some trees to be showing over here. And it's okay that they're not connected in the middle because we're going to cover up the middle anyway. So sand if you want to sand. So we've got 1, 2, 3 layers of brown. And then some snow-ridden trees in the front there. This way a little bit. So before I put my white trees on, I want to know where my edge is going to be because I do want to show some of that white ground on the tree. Or like, in front of the tree there. Okay, so trimming around the edge. And now that showing. Should have done a better job gutting this one. Go. Trim off. This goes in the center of the postage frame. And then I did Happy Christmas on this one. That was what was in your kit. But again, I'm not going to use that one. I know where it went. Because I'm going to do something different with mine. But there's that card. Here's our next one. Are you going to ink the background? Do you want to sand any of those layers? All right, so here's our pieces. I'm going to start by taking the trees and just cutting them down into smaller clumps so that we have more trees to spread through the mountains there. As much or as little as you want to do with this, as many clumps as you feel you need. So what we're going to do, I actually feel like I really want to sand these, so I'm going to sand these real quick. Hang on. So this is how the mountains are going to line up. And what I'm going to do is just put tape on the back. Oh, I was supposed to only do it on the bottom, not the top. Silly me. All right, so I'm going to put tape down here and then put this on so that I can now take the trees and where do I want them to go? You know, just kind of figure out where they're going to fall in there. Now keep in mind that white tree is going to come right through the middle. So it'll cover up a bunch of the center parts, save a little bit of tree for the front. But now that we've got a couple of those placed, I'm going to go ahead and add my brown pieces to the blue base so I can figure out where I want those trees to fall along the back there. So now I've got my skyline, making sure my trees go up and down. Move this one. Okay, so I want another big clump of trees up here. And I want some. Let me find out where the edge is first, and we'll trim this right down. All right, so now I know where I want these ones to go. Actually, these ones are kind of tall. Let me put them over here. And then some real short ones over here. Okay, now we know where our bottom is. We can decide how deep you want your trees to go, but remember you still got room for your lake too. All right, so where do you want your white trees to go? And now let's get our lake in there. I'm going to put my two leftover trees up there for use later. Let me figure out where the bottom is. So I know where to add my water. Oh, ribbon. And I'm not popping mine because I'm going to be stamping a sentiment instead of using Happy Christmas. I'm going to stamp something down in the corner there, so I want to make sure it's flat and easy to stamp on. So here's our upgraded and downgraded versions of that card. Here's our next one. Decide if you want to ink or sand. All right, so this one, if you're going to ink it, go ahead and ink it, and then the longer sides are going to get torn if you wanna. This, then if you're going to do ribbon, the ribbon goes around here. This goes on the card. Then our torn piece goes on. All right. From our house to yours goes right on the blue tab. And I put it further to the top with more space at the bottom. Then for our postage, we've got a brown layer, and I gave you a whole bunch. So use as much or as little of this as you want. And then you can save the rest of it to build other things if you want. You know, the pile's getting big. I have all sorts of fun things to do. All right, then our white layer. And then our tree layer. And you'll have extra trees again to use somewhere else if you so choose. I want my tree. I'm just going to trim up the edges and put that on my postage stamp. So we've got our stamp, from our house to yours. It goes right underneath there. And then the word joy, I had overlapping the ribbon and the corner of the postage stamp. So it all kind of lines up along the edge there. So our upgraded and downgraded versions of that card. Here's our next one. Do you want to ink? Is there any sanding you want to do? I'm going to add trees first to this layer. And because we've got not a lot of room, you're going to want to cut each layer off for this. Then we're going to add a little mountainscape. And again, trim. And then we're adding our lake, and very little of the middle part is going to actually show on your rectangle. So you want that to come right up to the edge there. I'm pulling mine more to the left. So now when we trim, hopefully everything lines up the way I want it to on that side. Mhm. Beautiful. Isn't that fun? And then what I did here is I went around the white postage stamp with the double black, pen twice, and then used the white gel pen to add stars and dots to the sky, just to add some extra dimension to that card. So now we've got our postage stamp done. I've already put the adhesive on that and added the ribbon. Pop your postage stamp if you want that to be popped. And season's greetings right down in here. So here's the light and the dark, the upgraded and the downgraded version of that one. Here's our next card. I did a little bit of inking on this embossed piece here, but I didn't do any other sanding. You do you. I'm going to start with our rectangle. I've added the white trees. Now I'm going to add the mountainscape here. I'm overlapping the trees with that. Let's see how low this goes before I do that. I think I want to show a little more on this side. Yeah, there we go. And then we've got our green trees, and I'm not going to use very many of these trees. I just take these little three guys on the end, and the rest of it's extra. All right, so we got our three trees there, a little bit of ribbon. Okay, so now let's get this card assembled. We're going to start with this along the top. And the green goes along the bottom. And I'm just putting that square. Now what I'm going to do when I add the red is that red piece is going at a diagonal so that it's covering up all of the white, but coming further down on one side and further up on the other. And that's what's creating that illusion of the diagonal. Just that one piece is doing all the work. All right, now we've got our postage stamp that's going to go right on there. Up in the open space, and then the season's greetings I'm going to put right down in this corner, enhancing that angle. There we go. Not so bad. Here's your next one. Decide if you're going to sand and or ink that. Tear that paper. And then we're going to attach this to the card again using that same kind of angling technique, making sure that all four corners of the paper are falling off the edge so that when we cut, you don't have this corner that kind of comes in here and looks all silly. All right, there's that. I've already added one piece. I did a little bit of sanding on this guy here. I'm going to attach this side of it. Save that for something else. I'm cutting the bottom off of this so I know where I want my trees to go. There's our postage stamp, and I'm just going to put some adhesive on the back, and this is going to go in a ribbony kind of shape and get tucked on the back like that. And then I'm actually going to use some foam for this one so that it doesn't go anywhere. Add your Happy Christmas or whatever sentiment you want on this one. But there's that card. Here is our next one. Now, that was our last standard card. The rest of them are all legal sized envelope cards. All right, ink if you want to ink. We're going to start by adding the blue embossed pieces with that brick embossing on there to the top and the bottom of the card. If you did light, stay light. If you did dark, stay dark for both of them. Then you're going to tear just one end of the patterned piece. It's going to line up along the top there near the blue and then fall down in here. Let's do our rectangle next for our postage stamp. We're going to add that piece. Then we've got a bunch of trees. Come here, you. All right, we got our trees right in there. Now I'm trimming this down. Our rectangle goes on our postage stamp. Oh, neither of them. All right, gonna pop this one. Oh, and something I just realized I didn't do that you could do is I just wrapped that ribbon around this piece right here. And do it. You see what I did. You decide if you want to add that or not. All right, so there's our postage stamp then. From our house to yours goes on the bottom blue one, and Joy goes on the top blue one. Mhm. All right, two different versions of that card. Now let's move on to this one. Do some sanding if you want. All right, I decided not to sand for mine. Tear off both ends of this paper, and then that goes right in the middle of those two. Now here's our layers. So we've got the blue, and on top of that, we'll put the white. On top of that, we'll put the gray. And I'm going to trim before I add my trees. This gray is something you probably could use again. You're gonna have a whole bunch of things left over that you probably could just add to rectangles and add them to elements. Okay. Trees, trees. I'm gonna actually, instead of using that whole big tree, I'm just gonna use this little one here. Oh no, we're using it all the way across. Never mind. I lied. Going all the way across. Okay. Now we've got our trees. Trim off the excess. So our postage. It's layered. Merry Chris or Marion Bright. It's going to go in the sky section of your postage stamp. I'm moving it over a little bit so it goes on the red. That way it doesn't cover up one of the tops of one of my trees. Okay. Add ribbon if you want to add the ribbon. And then from our house to yours goes down in the corner. That's it for that one. So there's the two of those cards. You can tell which one's sanded, which one isn't. Here's our next one. Will you do some sanding on this one? I did decide to sand and I've added my ribbon. So I've just done the same thing where I've tacked it around the back side. I'm adding that ribboned piece now to my card. Let's work on our square. So I've got adding one of these. Where do I want it to go? Let's see, right in there. And then I've got another layer that I'm going to add to this that I didn't do on there, but I like it with the extra layer. Let's go all the way down. It's got to go all the way down to the bottom because your trees won't necessarily have any of the snow showing below them. It might, but not necessarily. So I brought my brown all the way down. And now when I trim, here's my landscape for that one. I'm going to put "'Tis the Season" right on the ribbon. And so that's attached right to the ribbon. I'm going to add my postage stamp layer right there. You can use foam tape if you want to add that. And then our word "joy" is going to go right in there. Here is our next card. Do you want to do any sanding or inking on that one? I did 2 knots on this. Add your ribbon if you want ribbon. I'm not going to do ribbon on this one. Then I've got my white mountain in the background with a brown layer in front of it. Then I've got these trees. And I'm going to attach the trees to the back of the water because I want them to line up just right. You know what I'm talking about? That way, when I add this, it'll all fall just the way I want it. Oh, I kind of like how I offset it. I'm going to move this brown one. Bring this over up a little bit. Kind of cool. All right. Then our water will fall right in the middle, or the trees, right in the middle where the water or those two mountains all connect. Trim off the extra on 3 sides. Yeah, okay. So this gets layered on this, which already had, I did a brown layer and a postage layer. And I'm going to slide this way over this way this time and add my 'Tis the Season. Yeah, I feel like I should have done the ribbon. I'll probably end up adding a gem or something to it to bling it up just a little bit. So there's the 2 different versions of that one. Here's our next one. Decide if you want to add any sanding. So on the blue, we're adding the white and then the gray, the darker gray, and then trim. So you know where your trees are going to fall. All right, then we've got our trees. And in front of the trees, we're going to put one more like rock mountain. So I'm just kind of doing it as an angle. And then you get all those varying depths and layers all encompassed in that beautiful little rectangle. All right, add that. And then Merry Christmas or whatever you want to do. Again, I didn't do the ribbon on this one, but you certainly could. There we go. And we are on our very last card, my friends. So here, stand if you want or don't. Totally up to you. There's a white frame to this card. So I've already added ribbon to this piece. And I'm keeping a white frame around the edge of the card. Again, I'm not going to do Merry Christmas. You figure out if you want to do Merry Christmas or use a different sentiment. And then this is just mountains, trees, cut it down. And then, so this one's got a little more green showing in the front of it than the other ones did. So we really got to have the good shape formed unless you just wanted to show a little bit of tree. Well, some of the green showing. Well, maybe not. There we go. And then add your sentiment, the end. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, it's all about this die cut set that is on the last chance shop. So make sure you grab it before it's gone forever and you'll be so sad. Mwah. This is my last video for the year, my friends. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in 2026.